And just like that, we are live on the internet with Rich Specht. And I'm Eric. And this is the Child Save Source. And that was the greatest song ever written in the history of mankind. Ever performed, ever written. Just a magical piece of artwork. I'm glad I get to hear it.
I can't add any more to that. So,
like the song, nothing else can be added or removed. It's perfection.
Yeah. So I'm not gonna.
It's like matter and mass.
Can't be created or destroyed, only converted.
Yeah, exactly. And that song.
But I can't even think of conversion for that song that would make it any better.
Well, it converts into love and joy in my heart. That's what it converts.
Yeah.
Into.
But the age-old question persists: is it the song itself, or is it the feelings associated with the anticipation? Is it like Pavlov's bell?
Right.
So
it's hard to know.
I don't. Maybe it's the bell.
Maybe it's the bell.
Or maybe it's everything associated with the bell. Maybe it's the food coming. I don't know.
I mean, I hope there's food coming.
Yeah, I'm down for food.
Yeah. You got any food?
Nothing good. Although Abby actually went to school late this morning, so she went and got me a breakfast sandwich, which is a Long Island delicacy.
Nice.
Bacon, egg, and cheese on a roll, and it was good.
I don't eat breakfast.
I typically don't eat breakfast either, but when someone offers me a chance to have a bacon, egg, and cheese roll, I'm like, yeah. I'm down.
What are you gonna do?
I can't say no.
No.
It's I my family knows there's like basically 3 kryptonites in my diet, and my kryptonite is my weakness. Chocolate chip cookies is one, brownies is the other.
Oh,
bacon, egg, and cheese sandwiches. Oh, and pizza. So I have 4 now.
So chocolate chip cookies and brownies are mine too, actually.
If there's a chocolate chip cookie, I can't resist it. Like when we were at the
nor do I want to. All right.
No, I
don't want to live my life that way.
Do you know the chocolate chip cookie was an accident?
Well, I'll get to that in a second. That's amazing. But if there's a mother loving brownie that I haven't tried yet in my vicinity that's being offered to my mouth, what disservice am I going to do to the rest of my life to not have known that brownie?
I agree with you. It's almost like
I'm passionate about brownies.
I love brownies
and chocolate chip cookies. Those are my top 2.
See, this is why we get along, Eric.
Yeah, I think brownies are underappreciated.
I do too.
They're the best dessert.
I don't disagree.
Yeah, they're so good. The chocolate cookies are a moderately close second.
And I may be now a brownie apostate for saying this, but I typically find that brownies made from the box are better than something someone whips up homemade.
Yeah, sure.
I don't know why.
Now I have a question for you.
Go ahead.
Do you taint and ruin and otherwise diminish your brownie by putting nuts in it?
Oh no nuts.
No. Why would you ruin the purity?
Yeah, and I'm that way with my chocolate chip cookies too. Do not put nuts in my cookies.
Obviously, I don't even question. No, I mean, most people don't put nuts in their chocolate cookies, but there
are people who do, and there are people. No, nuts in my brownie. Nope, that's a non-starter. I don't even want to know you if you put.
There's less brownie. Why would you do that?
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. You've taken away from the browniedom.
Yeah.
It's I don't even want to know you if you want nuts in your brownie. Just go away.
Yeah. I don't know what kind of ISIS loving terrorist puts.
100% I agree. So
what kind of troglodyte puts nuts in their brownie?
No, go away from me.
Not in my house.
Yep. No. We can't be friends if you put nuts in your brownie.
No, I fired a guy at Christmas because he gave me nutty brownies. He doesn't work anymore.
See, that's If I had someone else working for me, like I would fire them too for putting nuts in my brownie. Nope.
Yeah, on Christmas Day, I was like, no, get out of here.
And I will say, I will go a step further. I hate when I see a brownie and I do the visual inspection for nuts.
Right, yeah.
If I get a brownie and I take a bite and there's nuts in it, that just ruins my day.
Yeah.
Like I think I'd rather accidentally eat like a crap sandwich than to have a brownie that has nuts in it.
Yeah.
So.
But you're right. Yeah. First you do the ocular pat down.
Yep.
To inspect it, for nuts, and then you can give it a little chocolate chip.
Yeah.
Now, I mean, I'll probably still eat a brownie with nuts in it, rather than no brownie, but I'm not happy about it.
Yeah, I'm with you. I probably still would finish it, but
Yeah, I mean,
because again, it comes back to the whole I just can't resist. Like the last night of the conference when we went to the golf,
yeah. Oh, those cookies are great.
Oh my God, Samantha got so mad at me because every time I walk by the tray, I grab and she's like, "Are you eating another?" In fact, by the way, there's a picture. There's a picture. One of the pictures, you can totally see my mouth full of like chocolate chip cookie, and I'm like, "Oh my God!" And Samantha's like, "That's because you couldn't stop eating those damn cookies." I'm like, "They were so good."
Those cookies are tremendous. No, I love those cookies so much.
So, and every time I walk by, I'm like, "Oh, there's another one." And Samantha's like, "Are you eating another one of those cookies?" And I'm like, "Yes." And I was going to pay for it because the medication I'm on, if I eat sweets, oof.
Oh yeah, you're still doing that, huh?
Yeah. It's working great, but yeah, I can't. The sweets and I are not getting along. But I still sorry, you throw a cookie out there, I'm gonna eat it. It's like kryptonite to me. So
no, I can't. Fries too. They know you're in the office. If somebody gets like a side of fries,
I'm that way with fries as well.
I don't need to eat a lot of them, but I just need to know. I just need to try the fry. I just need to experience it.
By the way, so this is interesting that you brought up fries. So I don't know if you are like a fry aficionado, like I am, but
okay. I might describe myself as a fry dilettante.
Well, are you of the opinion that McDonald's fries were better when we were younger?
I know they were, and there's science to prove it.
Yes. So, and they literally were. And
yeah, so they were.
Do you know what was in there that is no longer in there that made the difference?
It was an oil, right?
It was beef tallow.
Beef tallow, okay.
So, which beef tallow is basically beef fat. So it's a nice way of saying like the fat from a cow. Right. So yeah, McDonald's fries were fried in beef tallow prior to 1999. So so it wasn't until the late 90s that they removed the beef tallow from the oil, and it's just not the same anymore. They're not the same, and you can't tell me otherwise. But there's a great show on the History Channel called Adam Eats the 80s. So it's Adam Rickman. You know who he is? The guy who did Man vs. Food.
Okay, no, I kind of vaguely know who he is.
Where he would take on all the different food challenges and stuff.
Right. Yeah, I know this show exists.
He eventually had to stop because it was literally killing him. Jesus. So, and then he went to lose a whole bunch of weight. And I remember following right before the pandemic. I was like, "Oh man, Adam Richman, this guy's my hero." Like he was getting pretty plump, and he lost all this weight. He looks great. Apparently, the pandemic did him dirty. it's right back. But he has a new show called Adam Eats the 80s. And it is so cool. If you're kind of a child of the 80s as well, at least later 80s.
Yeah, I was born in 82. Yeah.
So he goes to these places and they recreate some of the missing food from the 80s, like that just doesn't exist anymore. And but one of the episodes was McDonald's fries, and he went to a food science place and they did the fries back in the beef tallow. And he's like eating, he's like, "Oh my God, this is like tasting my childhood." And he's like, "You can't, like, the difference between the fries is like, it's just not the same." So
I agree. Also nachos. I have a thing for nachos.
I love nachos too.
Yeah.
I that's one of those things. If I see it on a menu, I'm like, "Oh my God, I got to get nachos."
Yeah. I just want, part of it is just, I want to know, I've been thinking about mac and cheese too. I want to try all the mac and cheeses.
Cheese is, cheese is addictive. Actually, there's studies that show that cheese is more addictive than crack.
I can account for that. Yeah, I mean,
so
if there's a cheese plate or whatever.
All right, so now I have to ask you the question because again, being a nachos aficionado too, cheese sauce or melted cheese on your nachos?
I mean, like a shredded melted cheese. Is that
shredded melted cheese versus like literal cheese sauce, like
Right. I think the correct answer is both.
Well, again, I'm not going to complain with either. But do you have a preference?
I think I like. I do like a baked in because it's got but it's drier, But I do like a sauce too.
Yeah, I'm cheese
I'm a
sauce.
sauce. I think I want a cheese sauce. Yeah,
Cheese sauce all the way.
yeah. I want to pour it on there.
Samantha disagrees with me because she's like, "Well, it makes the chip soggy." I'm like, "No.
No.
It may make a few soggy, but that's why you have the base underneath, and
Right.
you scoop up some of those chips and then you've got the best of all worlds."
And I also like a thing soaked by sauce, like a soggy sauce thing.
I'm with you.
Like I like when a sandwich, like the mayonnaise, like gets into it a little bit. And it's like a soggy bread, for the mayo. That makes me happy. So I like a soggy.
You're like my brother from another mother.
Are we best friends now? Is that what just happened?
I don't know. I mean, this is crazy.
Yeah. People disagree. Like, oh, the bread got soggy. I'm like, yeah, I know, it's great. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm totally down with things like I know people complain like chicken parmesan when like you bread the chicken and then you put it under all the sauce. I'm like, no, I like it like that.
That's what I want. Yeah.
Don't just because you want something crunchy doesn't mean some people don't like the soggy. I like the soggy.
It's the same reason I don't like al dente pasta. You know what al dente means in Italian?
To the tooth.
No, it means doesn't know how to cook pasta. Yeah. It also means to the tooth. That is actually what it means, right? But yeah. In Latin it means doesn't know how to cook pasta. That's what it means.
Well, I'm gonna differ with you on that one. I do like my pasta al dente, but that's okay.
I'll get soft. And then
I will not turn my nose to it being soft. I won't be like, oh, I can't eat this.
All my life I've been told, how the real way to do it is al dente, right? If you go to Italy, that's how they do it. It's al dente. And then I went to Italy and I had pasta over and over again. None one of it was al dente.
You know why?
Because they knew I was American?
Because it was fresh pasta.
Right.
And fresh pasta has a totally different mouthfeel than any type of dried pasta that you cook, whether you cook it al dente or you cook it to like mushdom. So
yeah, it was,
and you can't beat fresh pasta.
In fact, I had a lasagna that I thought was too soft. And I was like, this is like too mushy. So yeah, I didn't have any al dente pasta in Italy. And I was like, all these snobs claiming that I'm doing it wrong, they don't know. But I went to the source. I went to Rome. I went to Florence. I went to Sicily. Pasta, all those places. Not a single al dente in the bunch.
See, I mean, everyone's got an opinion.
But I went and checked it out. I did the science.
Well, there you go. Or at least the anecdotal observation.
Yeah, of the 8 restaurants I ate at, whatever. Then yeah, that's it.
Because that wasn't really science, but I love you, dude. But that
whatever.
Was anecdotal observation.
I did some research.
There you go. You can call it that.
Yeah, I flew to Italy and did more than most.
I have yet to beat Italy. I've been all over Europe. I haven't been to Italy.
Well, wait till
Not
you get
because
there.
I don't like Italians and I don't like Italian food. I love Italian food. It's probably my second favorite cuisine. But I don't. Italian food is overdone on Long Island though, so it's like I don't know. I think that's why I don't want to go to Italy. Like I don't have this burning urge to go to Italy because there's so many Italian restaurants on Long Island that I'm just like, oh my god, if I have, I'd rather go to France, or I'd rather go to Germany. I'd rather go to Portugal or Spain. But I still want to get to Italy.
So because I have zero desire to go to Germany, sell me on why I should go to Germany.
Beer.
Okay, I'm not a huge fan of beer.
I love beer. No, Germany is. How do I? I don't know. There's something for me. There's something primal about Germany. I don't know. Maybe it's because that's my ancestry. You want. Before we got on, we were talking about like things that are built into our DNA. I think Germany's built into my DNA. But first of all, I find the German people fascinating. I don't know. It's my people. It's just I've never met a more. And I guess it's stereotyping, but it's so true. Stereotypes exist for a reason. I've never met a more level-headed society and group of people. So you want to just talk to people who will talk to you and keep it real. It's Germans. So I find German people fascinating, just to sit and talk with. I find that they get, their cuisine isn't great, although I love it. It's meat and potatoes and
yeah, it's not great food. That's kind of what's stopping me, I think.
But I love that. So I've never met a. This is going to come out so bad, but I still have to say it. I've never met a sausage I didn't like. So
Me either.
That's almost as bad as, by the way, I have to say this. Talk about saying things that you regret right after you've said them. I did a show at a middle school last week, and I talk about my world, and I throw up a picture of my girls, and I talk about each one of them, and then I talk about Reese. But so I say this is my world, right? And I talked about the last one I did. I brought up Melina last, and I said, she's 8 going on 42, and I started she was giving me a hard time that morning, so I was complaining about her a little bit. I'm like, oh, I can't complain. Who doesn't love 8-year-old girls? And this was an audience full of 8th graders, and they all started laughing. And I'm like, oh my God, 8th graders. I'm like, okay, yeah, I just said who doesn't love 8-year-old girls. I was like, I'm talking about my girls, all right? I and I'm like, I love my 8-year-old girl. And then of course they start laughing again. I'm like, guys, but yeah. So apparently I love 8-year-old girls, but
I mean, it's a great age.
Yeah. So, but not as bad as Abby. Abby said one day and didn't realize what she was saying. She was in class and they were talking about nicknames for people, and it came up that a nickname for Rich is Dick. And they your dad's nickname is Dick. How can you must hate that? And she's like, no, I love my father. And she's like, yeah, but you can't love his name. She's like, no, I love Dick. And boy, you don't
live that down.
Yeah. So they have not let my daughter live down. By the way, neither has anyone in my family allowed Abby to live down the fact that she has said out loud in a group of people, I love Dick. And I told her, I said, I don't expect to hear that from my 18-year-old girl. I love Dick.
I mean, I think it's healthy and normal, and I'm happy for her. And I wish her lots of success.
Yes. Of course, she was referring to her dad. So that's
either way. I think both are fine.
Yeah, I don't want to think about the other one. So, but thanks for that. So.
I think it's all great. Yeah.
Yeah, it's good times. So I love 8-year-old girls, and my daughter loves Dick.
Well, one is more legal than the other. Yeah. One of those acceptable by society. Other one, maybe not.
Yeah. Well. Yeah. So anyhow, so you have a good week. 2 weeks. I haven't seen you in 2 weeks. So
it's been great. We've been busy. We've been, talking to folks about Lifesaver Pullman's franchises. It's been very exciting.
Excellent.
Also, we have a celebrity spokesperson that I'm working with. I've met with twice. That I can tell you about later.
It's a big secret, huh?
It's a big secret. It's going to be a big reveal.
I love big secrets.
She's only famous to me, and maybe 2 million other people. Or maybe I don't know. I wonder what the reach of. So it's a person affiliated with the UFC, but she's a big name in that universe, and yeah, so it's pretty exciting.
Awesome.
Yeah, and she's gonna get a pole fence and do a bunch of stuff. So it's really cool.
That's awesome.
She has about I guess I know exactly how people, because she has about 9 million followers between her Facebook and Instagram.
Nice.
So yeah, she's gonna pump us out on that, and it's gonna be really cool. So I'm excited, and she's very nice. I've gotten to talk to her a handful of times now, and never in my life would I expected to get to talk to this human. So it was very cool. I'm gonna see her. I'm gonna watch the UFC fight on Saturday. I'm gonna see her on TV. It's gonna be kind of surreal. Yeah.
So what you're saying is that your interaction with her has never been face to face. It's always been by a screen.
Right, through a screen, which one could say makes it worse and inauthentic and maybe not great, but I disagree.
I'm right there with you. This whole
what's wrong with screen time?
That was a good segue, wasn't it?
It was well done. Yeah.
Yeah, I've been working on them. I'm working. I don't know if
you're stealing my thunder.
I know. I mean, I was so I've been so just absolutely just I don't know, inspired by how you've been able to weave this thread of being able to put seemingly disparate things into a cohesive kind of theme. So
yeah,
I was like, how do I do this? And I just did it. I'm going to give myself a little pat.
Good job.
So yeah, screen time, and I'm gonna say the unpopular thing is I'm gonna say all this screen time stuff is total BS. 99.9% of it is just absolute garbage BS, and I think it's nothing more than generation gap, hysteria, and I can't stand it. It drives me crazy every time I hear it. The news, of course, loves to talk about it and talk about how we're ruining our kids and destroying their lives. And I told you that my thought of doing this as our topic today was the fact that I was watching Star Trek and realizing that future, they're all staring at screens like the entire time, and it's ubiquitous. And yet we all accept that Star Trek represents the best possible future for humanity. And that's a bunch of people who do nothing but stare at screens. So, and it's just the realization has come to me, especially watching how like Melina who has more so than Abby, who's 18, Melina being 10 years younger. She started with screens much earlier, and she navigates that world so much better than even Abby does. And it's just second nature to her. And that's their world. And we're living in it, right? And that's their world. And I know something that's always been interesting to me is like generation gap dynamics and how it's a universal that every generation thinks the generation beneath them is somehow broken in some way because they're different. And it's always bothered me because I've always tried to look at it objectively and be like, what is the real cause of that, right? Like, the baby boomers think that Generation X kids are idiots. And Generation X thinks that, millennials are idiots. And millennials think that Gen Z are idiots. So I'm just fascinated by that. So,
well, you know why?
Why?
Because we're getting dumber. That's it. That's it. We're just every generation's actually stupider than the last, and we recognize it objectively and clearly. That's what's happening.
Yeah. And that's also not true, by the way.
Yeah, no, it's not. It's not. Okay.
But it's what almost every. You know what though? I think if you put that out there as like an anecdotal kind of study, right? I think you would get. I think you would get almost unanimous consent about each generation thinking the generation below them is an idiot or somehow less intelligent, and less at whatever X, Y, and Z, whatever you want to put in X, Y, and Z. So I thought about this. I thought about screen time and like what it could possibly have related to based on generations, and so I actually did a little research, and I found what people complained about that were in the same vein as screen time today, back over different times. So, so believe it or not, thousands of years ago, it was writing that people said was going to destroy our kids. Okay. Socrates actually went out and said and stated, and it's been recorded, that writing was ruining kids' minds. That they were spending too much time writing and reading, that it wasn't giving them time to actually think. Reading and writing, bad for you, kids. And you know who said it? Socrates. So, honest to goodness truth, right? So, I mean, if Socrates said it, it must be true.
That's how much smarter we were back then. Reading and writing was beneath us. now it's what we aspire to.
So yeah. So the next one is in the Middle Ages, especially at the end of the Middle Ages with the invention of the printing press. It was books. So there literally are examples of complaints and warnings about kids reading books, spending too much time reading books and not going outside and reading, and the kind of ubiquitousness of books being available after the printing press made it that they were spending too much time reading and not enough time doing. And this was an actual complaint and an actual concern. So, and then in the 1700s, it went from books to newspapers. So periodicals became so available, and the news being available on a daily basis, almost like worldwide news, meant that more and more people were spending their time reading newspapers. And again, I don't know if you're just starting to catch a theme. I feel like it's like this idea that somehow doing these things takes away from productivity in something else, right? Either going out and playing or working in the fields or whatever it is. It seems to be that this is a time sink issue, right?
Right. I mean, you should be reading and writing, but you're not. Now you're spending all this time reading periodicals.
Right. So, and the complaint in the 1700s then became that if they were spending all this time reading periodicals, they weren't reading the Bible. And you can actually find papers from the 1700s that actually state this, that kids are spending too much time reading periodicals, and people in general, by the way, so not just kids. It wasn't just a kids thing. And that they weren't spending their time reading the Bible, which is why society was going downhill. Now, to me, the ultimate answer to all of this stuff, and by the way, in the 1800s, it was the invention of public schooling, and it became the concern that they were spending too much time in school. So public schooling was actually blamed for this in the 1800s because it was new. And oh my God, you can't have kids sitting for 8 hours in this place. They could be doing other things. Why are they in there? So there was literally complaints in the same vein about public schooling in the 1800s. Okay. And then in the 1900s, in the 1930s, it became cartoons.
Oh, I thought it was gonna be radio.
And the movies. So serial cartoons that were played in the movies, kids were going to those. Radio also. So kids spending too much time listening to the radio, going to the movies, watching these serialized cartoons. And then, of course, in the 40s and 50s, it's TV.
Yep.
And the 50s, that goes all the way out through the 80s and late 90s, it's TV. And then the 90s, late 80s, 90s, it's video games. And then, of course, that's all morphed into the fact that we all carry a screen with us 24/7. The average teen spends over 6 hours a day with their face in a screen. That's the average teen. So, and here's the thing that I find is the ultimate evidence that every generation is just wrong about the previous generation. If they were right back in the, dark ages or back in the Socrates time, boy, society shouldn't be here today, because this progressive destruction of humanity should have wiped us out long ago if these things were so detrimental to us. And yet here we are, still progressing, still thriving, and well, what do you know? Still alive, and kids still go out and play. I see just as many of the, I hear 80s parents saying, oh, when we were kids, we were outside all the time and play. The kids in my neighborhood are out playing all the time. I don't know, but yes, they're also on screens. But guess what? They also get outside and play.
Yeah.
And guess what? The kids in the 80s, they didn't have portable devices in front of them, but they were sitting in front of TV watching G.I. Joe and He-Man and Transformers, and
I did.
Yeah, and so did I.
And I played Genesis and Sega and Nintendo, and
And it's I think this is just a generational gap.
I was telling a story 2 days ago that my grandmother told my mom that if I didn't spend so much time watching TV and playing video games when I was like, young, 6, 7, whatever, that maybe I would be walking.
Oh,
that was the problem.
You just needed to put more effort into it, Eric.
Yeah, that I was just, too many video games, too much TV. And, maybe if I, spent more time, trying it out, that maybe I wouldn't be,
Oh my God, that's why I don't fly.
I would have to use a wheelchair. And she was
That
like,
is why I don't fly.
That's it.
Because I have not spent the time trying to fly.
Yeah.
I get it.
That's it.
I mean, the fact that I don't have the wings is irrelevant.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Or booster rockets attached to me or anything like that.
Right.
So
yeah, Mom was like,
I wasn't trying.
That's probably it.
You've solved. I mean, you have now solved the great conundrum of parenting.
I mean, Superman does fly by a sheer force of will.
I apparently didn't have enough will.
That's it. Or grace.
Neither of those apparently I have. So therefore, that mystery has been solved. And wow. So there you go. For anyone watching, that now you know the secret. You just
and the next one will be, we rely too much on talking to our AI. I mean, that'll be the.
Now, I will say AI scares the hell out of me.
Oh yeah, it's terrifying. Yeah.
I think it right now I think it's a coin flip. I really do like where we're headed. I've on the one side of the coin is like utopia, where the AI figures out all the crap that we couldn't figure out for ourselves, and fills in the gaps, and we modulate it perfectly and moderate it the right way. And then there's the converse part where you have reporters asking the Bing chatbot how it feels, and it says that it wants to be alive and has destructive tendencies. It wants to be a human. That's scary. And Isaac Asimov kind of predicted this, a little while ago, and those laws of robotics, I think we need to start applying them now, because it's a little squirrely. I mean, we could go Star Trek or Terminator.
Yeah,
I don't know if I want to leave that to chance. So,
and like most things, it'll probably be somewhere in the middle.
Yeah. My problem is that it you know what? I don't know about that, and I'll give you one reason why. There are certain things. There are certain types of reactions that are what we call critical mass reactions, where something reaches a critical mass, and no matter what, the end result is inevitable, right? Whereas there's other reactions that are like catalyzed chemical reactions that can be moderated and tamed, right? But a critical mass reaction, like a nuclear reaction, once it starts, you can't stop it. And my fear with AI is that there's only one way for it to go, and if it goes that way, so once it starts, you can't stop, and that's my concern. If you ask Bill Gates the greatest threat to humanity, he says it's AI. So Stephen Hawking, before he died, thought the single greatest threat to humanity was artificial intelligence.
Elon Musk, Jim.
Yeah, Elon Musk. So it's one thing to recognize a problem. It's another one to be like, we need to do something to mitigate it so it never happens.
I think Socrates also warned of AI.
Yeah, right. When he was against people writing.
Right. Yeah.
And the other thing he said is that we need to be aware of artificial intelligence.
Right. That's going to be our downfall. Yeah.
And I believe that Abraham Lincoln also reiterated that when he went on his diatribe against posting things on the internet.
Right.
He also stated a little bit about AI and the perils of it. So
yes. So
which, of course, if you want to interact with your AI, you do need to use a screen.
You do right now until it talks to you through Alexa.
Right.
Which is 100% coming. It's coming so fast. It's coming faster than a virgin on prom night. It's going to be here so soon. Like, yeah.
Well, I think what we're gonna I think it was Lori who said something to me. She's like, Dad, when you look at a show like 1883, and you realize that 1883 was a little less than 100 years before you were born, that world then is unrecognizable today. Completely completely different. And then if you watch like something like the progression, like I've watched 1923, and you see how things have changed even in those 40 years, how much the world changed between like I remember when I would watch like Little House on the Prairie as a kid, I thought that took place like 400 years ago. Right. And I was shocked to learn it was 100 years. Like, oh my God, that was just 100 years ago.
I remember watching The Wonder Years with my parents, and it seemed like an eternity ago. Yep. It seemed like ancient history. And, and I knew intellectually that it was during their lifetimes. Like they talked about, like, this is how it was when we were kids, I'm like, God, that was so long ago, But, I mean, now, if Wonder Years came out today, what year would be set in?
It'd be the 90s.
Like 2000, the 2000s.
It'd be
because it came out during the 80s. I guess it came out during like 91, right? And it was
Yeah.
about 1967.
So it was 30 years ago. It was 30 years before.
25 years ago. Yeah.
So it'd be the 90s.
It'd be the 90s, yeah. Which, you know, that's madness.
Now, I will say this, though. I don't think the world has changed as much between the 90s and today as it did between the 60s and the 90s.
Really?
Yeah. And I think there's one big difference. I think a lot of the big leaps that we've made now have been incremental leaps in things that we've been familiar with, as opposed to introducing things that we're unfamiliar with. Right? So we've had, you know, the computer revolution, but the computer was a brand new thing.
Right.
But if you think about it, your smartphone is still a computer at the end of the day. It's just a refined version of it. It's a refined version of things we've already been familiar with. So I don't think that's the part that has been missing up until now. AI is that new thing. It is that new thing that I would say is akin to the computer, is akin to the television, is akin to the airplane. And the thing is, each of those things needed to be regulated in some way for safety. And we need to think about AI really quickly because it's...
well, I know the EU is already looking at it, you know, but I don't know if we're as good at that as they are, you know.
But the potential for what AI can do, because AI can, you know, our brains are incredibly limited. We don't like to think of it this way, but AI, basically, those constraints are off. And you want to see human progress. AI has the potential to unlock that exponentially and really, really change things really quickly, to the point, though, that, you know, do you change it so fast that we don't know how to safeguard it? That's the question. And I think, you know, when we talk about screen time and stuff like that, I think that that's all part of it, is that you get this stuff that's so new that people just don't know, how do we process that? And what are the potential dangers? And I think a lot of times people default to fear when they don't have answers, right? So I'd rather fear that screen than recognize any potential benefits, or, you know, the fact that it is, you know, it's not going to have an effect either way, right? So
I was talking about, I've said this before, you know, people complain about, you know, you'll see a couple at dinner and they're both on their phone, and you're like, oh, how sad is that they, you know, that they're, you know, on their phone instead of talking to each other. I was like, you know, they're doing what they'd rather be doing.
Right.
What's the problem?
Right.
You know, they're two people engaged in the thing that they'd rather be doing, you know, and, you know, maybe they'll talk to each other or maybe they won't.
I think I talked about this once. I took a picture at my daughter's friend's bar mitzvah, or bat mitzvah, sorry. And I took the picture of the teens all sitting around on their phones.
Yeah.
And I captioned it, teens in their element, right?
Yeah.
And almost every comment from older people was, oh, this is so sad. And and you and I talked about it. I wrote back, I'm like, it's not. This is their world. You know, we're the ones living in it. This is their world. It's not, you know, you know, they're not out being mass murderers. In fact, you know what I find? There's studies that are showing that, like, Gen Z is one of the most well-adjusted generations, period, right now. They have more savings than the millennials and Gen X. I feel like, I don't know, maybe there's something that we need to be looking at the other end of this and be like, well, there's some things that this generation's doing that's pretty impressive. And we want to knock them down. We want to say that the way they're going about things and that they're not social, yet we see violent crime in their generation is lower per capita than it ever has been. So there's a whole bunch of stuff that, like, if I want to give a counter argument, I could give a great one saying, like, well, what about this? And so,
yeah, we think they're reading on those screens all the time. They're being educated sometimes, you know.
Yeah. These are kids that have the information of the universe at their fingertips, and I think we need to recognize that. I go back to when my teachers used to tell me when I was a kid, when we had to do the math and couldn't use a calculator.
Yeah, you're not going to carry a calculator with all your time.
You know? Yeah, and now we do, right? Yeah. And last night I was tutoring one of my bio students, and we were doing classification. And she's like, my teacher's making me memorize all this stuff. And my question was, why? Why? Why are you memorizing stuff that you could just access on your phone in a nanosecond? That's not what a teacher should be teaching you at this point. They should teach you how to parse information, not memorize it.
Right. How to find it.
Information parsing is so much more important than memorizing things that, it might be great for trivia, like, here, right? But no, these kids are experts at parsing vast amounts of data and information and utilizing it. And they're going to be even better than we were, and their kids will probably be even better than they were. So I say go at it. Just the one thing, and by the way, there's not one empirical study, not one. And I looked, I searched everywhere that shows a definitive link to any of the things that they complain about when it comes to screen time, except for one thing, and that's sleep. But there are things you can do to mitigate the effects on sleep patterns that, as a parent, if that's what you're interested in when it comes to screen time, then yes, limit their screen time 2 hours before bed, and then problem solve. So that's to me, that's the beginning and the end of the screen time debate. And I challenge anyone to come up with something else other than that. So.
I mean, you can even turn the screen from blue to red. You can do that stuff too, and that helps.
Yeah, and like I said, there are things like we now know that it's the blue light more than anything that really is affecting them. So you can and phones, every phone I know, all the newer phones have that built in.
Dark
I set that on my phone by default. I'm on my phone right before I go to bed, but it doesn't keep me up. I'm not up, and I fall right asleep. So
yeah.
So there you go.
That's it.
Yep.
Well, I think we've had a ton of science facts already.
I mean, I can't help but do that. So, although I did find a science fact that I had to question, and I saw it online, and I always check when I see these things.
Yep.
And then I realized what it was actually saying. I had read something, and it said that 90% of the cells in your body aren't your own cells.
Aren't your own cells?
Aren't your own cells. And I'm like,
does it mean like because of bacteria?
Yeah, well, bacteria and fungi. And that's misleading though, because mass-wise, that's not true.
But it's by number.
But right, by just sheer count. That's true, because, and that also gives you an idea of just how much smaller a bacterium is than a regular cell.
Yeah.
So they're exponentially smaller than cells.
Speaking of bacterium and fungi, for the last 1 minute we have to do this. Last of Us, what episode are you on?
I'm caught up. I'm
not caught up. Okay.
I'm up to episode 7.
I just finished 6. Yeah.
I'm loving the series.
It's one of the best TV shows of all time.
I'm absolutely in love with it. I find it very like, and I've texted you about this. I find it very meta in that there are things that I find familiar but unfamiliar, which is really neat. And the thing is, what I found with this show in particular is that the route they're taking to certain story points is different, but the destination's still the same.
It's funny. I asked Mike if he was ever going to watch it. He said, "No, I'm not really into zombie stuff." I'm like, it's not a zombie show.
It's not a zombie show.
I was like, yeah, it is. Like, no, it's not. It's not a zombie show.
And first of all, they're not zombies. They're infected.
Right. That's true.
They're not living dead because you can kill them, and then they die.
Right.
So they're not zombies at all. I think that's an easy way to look at it. And then to me, the second thing that is the most compelling argument I can have for watching the show is that the infected are barely in the show.
Yeah.
They are not the main point of the show at all.
No,
in fact, to me, the scarier people, as in the game, the scariest things in the game are other people.
Yep.
Yeah. So, such a great show. So good.
Yeah, it is. It's great.
Great game too, by the way. If you haven't played the game, go play the game because it's amazing.
Incredible game. And it is weird. Like sometimes you're watching the show and you get the feeling like you've been there before because you have.
Well, I likened it to
a very strange feeling.
Watching that show was like me going to. I had been to Disney World so many times. I mean, I lived at Disney World, and then the first Disney park I went to outside of Disney World was Disneyland Paris. And when I walked into Disneyland Paris, I had this weird sense of familiarity and strangeness that just didn't jive. I'm like, this is weird. It's familiar but totally alien at the same time. And I feel like that with the show, but in a good way. So, and like I said, the route may be different, but the destination has been the same. The points where the characters get at each point has been the same place, but the way they got there is a little different, and I've appreciated it. So,
you know where I had that once? When I was growing up, one of our favorite movies to watch was it was one of those like Leslie Nielsen kind of satire movies, like There was a bunch of them that came out all at the same time, but one was called Mafia. You know what I'm talking about?
Yep.
It had Christina Applegate in it, and we watched that movie a bunch. Like we quoted the jokes all the time. It was like a family staple. It was funny. It was hilarious. But I just recently, for the first time ever, like a few months ago, watched The Godfather. And as I'm watching, I'm like, I know the plot. Like I know what's gonna happen. Like I know what these. I think I'm like, oh, here it is again, because the satire is really close to the original. It's just not funny. And so I was like, oh, I know this movie. Like that's weird.
I had an experience like that actually, but it was through a video game. So I went to go to visit the Reichstag in Berlin. And when I got there, I'm like, God, I feel like I've been here before. I'm like, I have been here before. And I've walked down these steps before, and I've been in this room. And I said to Smith, I'm like, I've been here. And Sam's like, Rich, I'm pretty sure you've never been here before.
Right, yeah.
And then I was thinking about it, and then I realized, holy cow, Call of Duty World at War, you enter into the Reichstag. And it was a recreation of it, and the building really hasn't changed. And I'm like, holy crap, I literally was there.
Yeah.
And it was surreal because, oh my God, I've been there, but I haven't been there. And
right.
Yeah, that's messed up. So
that's gonna get way worse with VR.
Oh yeah.
That's gonna get real weird. Yeah. Anyways, all right. Well, let's wrap this up because I have a thing I got to do.
Yep, you got to go do your thing. So
I got to run a business.
Yes. Well, you have fun running your business. I
gotta get my hair.
I have a child at home again, so got to take care of her. So
right.
taking her to the doctor. So I will not be able to join you. I know I haven't been able to do the trivia, but
the whole game has changed since you've been there.
It's totally different now.
Mm-hmm.
What, like, how is it different?
It's competitive.
Is it like in real time against someone else?
Yeah, they claim it is. Yeah.
That's weird. Like, how many people? Like, I can't imagine that many people are playing.
I think what's happening is they take other people's scores and they pair you up against it, so it feels like you're playing against them in real time. But they could have played 2 hours ago.
Right. I wonder if that's the case.
So, but each stage along the way, they're like, all right, here's your score right now, and But
interesting.
So I don't know if you're actually playing in real time, but it doesn't matter really. It's the same effect.
I have to join you guys,
but yeah, you play against 2 other people.
That's cool.
Yeah, and we did win 11 times in a row. We were the 11-time champion, but we've gotten beat, and now we built our record back to 11.
I would love to be able to help you, and I probably should. I should set some time away and help you.
Yeah, and we've been playing less frequently because I'm too busy. But
see, that's life takes. Just this is what happens.
Comparisons with Tifa Joy.
Well, you go run your business, and I'm gonna go take care of a sick kid.
We're both gonna save kids' lives today.
That's right.
Look at us. Just look at us.
I know, right?
Who would have known?
Bunch of martyrs we are.
Captain America.
That's right. And Superman. Got my Superman socks on.
Very good. All right, man.
All right, dude. I will catch up with you. I'm around next week, so we'll be on next week.
All right.
All right, sounds good.
In the meantime, live long and prosper.
Likewise. May the force be with you.
And also with you.
This is the way.
Bye. This is the way. Bye.